Right, morning, welcome everybody. This morning we are talking blocks and limitations. I think it was Tabisa, eh? If I remember correctly. Yeah, blocks and limitations. Yeah, which Tabisa says he has absolutely none of, so he has no problems. The rest of us, you know, who are a little bit older and a little bit wiser, know that we've all got blocks and limitations. And there's Trevor. You know, his limitations are, you know, exceed his blocks by an order of magnitude. But you know, we'll let him talk about those when we get around to him. So, yeah, can we overcome them? Do we have them? How do we deal with them? All those sort of interesting questions. So there you go, Laura. Early childhood development. Yeah, you pitched up on the right morning. Come and tell us how to solve all our problems. So,
you want me to lead?
Why not? You know, we don't believe in giving anybody any respite. You know, you go AWOL for a couple of weeks. You know, you're going to get straight back in the hot seat. I mean, what can I say?
Do justice, right? Okay, so how shall I go? Everybody's got them. Every single one of you got something. I don't know what it is, but y'all got something. I experience imposter syndrome big time. Big time. I just came off of a 3-day summit that I organized within the span of about 18 days. It kicked off on Friday, 7 hours on Clubhouse on Friday, 6 hours on Saturday, 5 hours today. And my block and limitation was the assertiveness to ask for more help. So I didn't want to be a bother. And what happened was, in addition to me asking certain folks to just speak on their story, that women were coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, and said, "Can I help?" And the block was that one of them was that my limitation was my computer. The internet shut down on Tuesday night, and I had to wait until Thursday morning for the tech person to come and to go live on Friday, and I was freaking out. And never ever live with someone until you see them when their computer dies. And I'm sure something you might be able to resonate with that, because I'm not a pretty person when that happens. So I'm using the internet on LinkedIn and my email on my phone, and I'm an Android user, and my coach encouraged me to get an iPhone so I could go on Clubhouse, because you need a voice, you have to speak. So I bought a $150 iPhone. The iPhone wouldn't connect with my Android. Never ever live with someone until you see them when their iPhone collapses. So my limitation was for a moment not the ability, being the okayness with not having access to y'all, and it was not fun, and I missed you. So that was my block, only in the sense that I need to still be here. My limitation was my own mind, that I wasn't able to, in the moment, realize that friends, colleagues, and well-wishers would remain steadfast, no matter what. I'm Laura, and I'm complete.
Great, thanks, Laura. And I like that assertiveness to ask for help. So that sounds like a bit of an oxymoron, but you know, maybe it works. So yeah, I'm going to make some assertiveness and ask Ed for some help. So Ed, over to you.
Yeah, it's interesting that Laura should mention imposter syndrome, because that's a sort of massive part of the writer's world. Most writers suffer from imposter syndrome. And I was doing a little bit of research on it the other day and came across an article, I think it was in Forbes magazine. They were saying 73% of female executives suffer from imposter syndrome. And they were putting a lot of it down to the fact that women, when they're growing up, are sort of told it's wrong to be loud, it's wrong to be pushy, it's not feminine to do these things. And therefore, that's why when they start getting in business, they think, you know, they shouldn't be there. But that was just by the by. But thinking about the limitations thing and the blocks, I did a quick Google and Googled what blocks you from being a success. And it was very interesting, the results that came back, because in my world of running, we tend to, if you look at an article, it's got the 7 best ways to get faster, or the 5 top tips to be a great runner, or maybe it might be sort of, 9 steps to success. But when I Googled these barriers things, it was like the 17 things holding you back, 20 things that are holding you back, 17 things that are holding you back. I think the least I found was 12. So I concluded either that people that write those articles like to show how clever they are, or they're throwing all the stuff they can possibly get out there in the hope that something sticks, or maybe there are multiple reasons why we don't succeed. But I don't think there are, because you could turn around and say it's procrastination, it's imposter syndrome, it's fear of failure, it's doubt, it's distractions. But I don't think it is. And I was had a quick look at Psychology Today, which I think is Lee's favorite bedtime reading. And it was an interesting thing in there about how a lot of billionaires are I can never say the word, narcissists. But it seems there's very little empirical research around that. It's mostly guesswork. And I'm thinking, well, I know some narcissists who aren't billionaires. So it can't be the fact that I'm not a narcissist, that I'm not a billionaire. And I think what holds us back is some deep down thing that happened way in our past that makes us think we aren't good enough, that we don't deserve to be a success. And if we can get to that little nugget, then we'll be fine. And I think very often it's because when we start doing stuff, we're not aligning what we're doing with our values as well. So we need to really dig deep to find out what that could, and it's probably, unique to each person, but there will be something deep down in their original sort of how they laid down their thinking that is holding them back. And I also kind of thought, well, it's interesting. I heard the other day that 75% of all young people leave their job in the first 3 or 4 years because of stress or mental issues, which I found really strange. And I wondered whether it is because now work doesn't align with our values. In the old days, it wasn't that we didn't have values. It was like we almost compartmentalized. Work was work, values were values, and the two didn't matter. Now I think people expect where they work to have the same values as them, and they don't get on because their values and their work don't align. So I think it's aligning our inner stuff with our outer stuff, sorting out what's holding us back, whether it's because we were told we were no good as a child, or because we don't believe we should have success. I don't know, but I think it's something really deep down. It's not something you can turn around and say, well, if you make a to-do list every morning, you will succeed. Or if you don't sweat the small stuff, you'll succeed. I think you need to sort out that little thing inside that tells you you're not worth it.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. Yeah, I simply can't imagine an ultra marathon going 9 steps to anywhere or 20 steps to anywhere. It just doesn't seem like enough. You're going to have a few 100,000 steps to go somewhere.
Even the longest journey starts with a single step, and that's all you've got to do. Put one foot in front of the other and repeat.
Wash, rinse, and repeat. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. So talking about washing, we better get over to Jasper. I don't know why that came up, but yeah. So Jasper, over to you.
I also don't know why that came up, Ivan. So now I feel very limited and blocked in my approach to this topic. Yeah, no, I think in one way I almost feel like Tabiso, that I do not have blocks and limitations, but it's only because do agree with Laura, we all have. But then an interesting thing came up as I thought about a block. What is blocking? And I realized that, and I can only talk for myself, it would be impatience. My block is impatience in that I'm too impatient to solve the problem. And then the problem is the limitations. And we all have limitations depending on what we're busy with. And I was just thinking of the stuff that I'm constantly dealing with. So one of my challenges is I can only speak 2 languages, but in Africa, French seems to be quite a prominent language. And in business, I meet a lot of people from our Francophone countries that wants to engage with us, but sometimes the communication is difficult. So I'm saying, all right, and why I'm coming back to this thing that my block is impatience. So if I want to speak French immediately, or then then it's a block. But how do I solve it? So if I bring patience into the equation, I can do only one of 2 things. I can learn the language, which I am busy with, but I'm already busy with for 2 years. And I certainly know quite a few more words than I used before. But because it's not my economic necessity, I have not yet picked it up to the point of carrying a conversation. But what I can do is I can build friendships with people who are fluent in French and English. And that also takes time, and you can't force it. But now that I know that it's one of those areas that I would have a need for, it's easier for me to start making connections with people who are French and English speakers. Yeah, so that's the one thing. Then time. Time is a huge limitation. I think all of us have got so many projects on our plate that you just don't know which one to do next. But I find in that, even that is then a blessing, that it forces you to say, all right, you can obviously not get around to everything yourself. So what in all the activities on your desk is there that you can delegate and find someone else to do it, that for them it's actually a pleasure. They actually just didn't know they want to do that. Now that takes time. It takes time to figure out what is it that I don't need to do myself. It can still be done, and I could still get around to be involved, but I don't have to physically do it myself. So, and I think there's the oxymoron, that I don't have time to just sit down and figure out what can I do to give me more time. So that's a challenge. Then skills. None of us have got all the skills, but all the skills are there. So it's a matter of finding out what is it that's missing, and then the same applies in language. I can either build it up over time, which I think Zoom is a good example for all of us, that we had to quickly master Zoom because it's a skill that we needed. But we can also overcome the shortage of skills through friendships. Find people who have the skills that you're looking for and become a friend and make them part of the team. So yeah, so I think the conclusion of this whole thing is blocks and limitations are there because of impatience. If you can clearly define the problem, whether it's now a block or a limitation, in defining the problem, you have solved it. The problem is we are not defining the problem. We just want everything to happen for us.
Great, thanks, Jasper. Yeah, I mean, my French has always been fairly limited, I must be honest, but we won't go down that route. So yeah, looks like Thabisa has some limitations with his connections this morning, so we're going to have to shoot across to Lee next. So Lee, welcome back. So blocks and limitations.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking about it. Thank you for the email that gives you a heads up as to what the topic is. When I think about myself, I think fear has always been, fear is a double-edged sword in my life. it's what can block me and prevent me from moving forward. But it's also, and I think we have spoken about it, it also actually motivates me. It tells me that I'm on the edge of something that I don't know, that I'm unsure of, that I don't know that's going to work. I might fail, I might be rejected, and to do it anyway. So it becomes a point of courage. So the fear turns into courage. The fear is the place at which I push myself to say, you can do it, it is possible. And the self-talk that enables me to overcome that fear. I think that was very much something that I lived with for a long time, but I don't feel like it's something that I deal with on as much now. I feel like I've had so much fear in my life and overcoming things that it's like, okay, I know that feeling, I know what to do, and you carry on. I think the block maybe that I feel now is discouragement. And that's a more difficult one that I find to deal with, in the sense that you keep trying things, you keep doing things, you go this direction, you adapt here, you change there, you keep pushing, and it's not getting there, and maybe it's what Jasper was saying about patience. Maybe I'm being impatient, or maybe I'm looking for results in the wrong way. But there is that feeling like, when is it going to tip over? And so that can sometimes make me want to withdraw rather than to keep pushing forward. Whereas I think it is, in my mind, I know that it's on the other side of the hill. It's just that one more step, Edward. It's just that one more when the water boils. It's just that few more degrees. So I understand that's where it is. But I have to, the block is to get over that. Come on, Lee, you can keep going. And then I just want to say the word that came up, I don't know whether it was a word that came up here. This is really a block that I experience, but it's one that has come up in many conversations. And I sort of have a pet hate with this word, and that's the word passion. So passion is important because it's where your enthusiasm, your exuberance, your energy. So we need passion. But this whole thing of follow your passion and you'll never work a day in your life, I always think about the queues of people along, the idols queues, where you're auditioning to become this famous pop star, and they stand up and they sing. And honestly, and I'm a very poor singer, but I could sing better in the shower than they do. And so it's all passion, no talent, and they think they're going to become famous and make all their money. And I just think sometimes our block is that I love something, and that's what I need to do. And I keep searching, and I keep looking, and I keep wanting to seek this passion, but it's misdirected. And I think we're not realistic about what we can do and what is necessary. And I'm not saying we must go to the salt mines and be miserable our whole lives. Edward's whole thing of separating work and values. I'm not saying that. Just somehow we need, and I think Jim Collins had this this called the hedgehog concept, where you have passion, skill, what you're good at, and then what you can make money from. And it's the intersection of those three things that is actually your sweet spot. And I think we need to work on that more, is where is our sweet spot? And it's a combination of those three things. Yeah, so that's me.
Great, thanks, Lee. Teresa, you've been having a limitation with your connection this morning, but let's see if we can grab you while you're online and hear your thoughts.
Yes, clearly that my limitation is my internet connection today. My Wi-Fi is a nightmare. I don't know what's wrong. So clearly I have limitations. I was deluded when I said I don't have limitations. And of course, I think that Jesper talked about time. I think time is a big limitation, I think, for everyone. But, I'll talk about the Brave New Order, and it's a novel about this dystopian future where everyone is like dominated by, pleasure sensations, and we see this in this current, world where we have like social media, where everyone is like totally addicted to the platform, and when you get likes, it induces that dopamine, so it makes you an addict in a sense. And we see this in a form of Netflix as well. We see everything is nowadays in the world is so expedient, and we're chasing that instant gratification. It is what Nietzsche actually talked about when he talked about the last man. He said that man is something that needs to be overcome, and how do you overcome this man? By becoming the Ubermensch, the overman, because man is passive. Nietzsche correctly, saw the 21st century, he saw that man would be passive and he will be, taken away by novelty, and we see this every day. Like today I can buy an iPhone 10 and tomorrow there'll be an iPhone 10X, consumerism is just rife and everyone is just being swept away by, these novelties, So I think that, of course, there are limitations, everyone experiences these limitations, but I think that you have limitations if you are passive, if you are that person who flows around with the wind, because you don't have an elevated perspective, so you can't see past today. The way I see life and the reason why I say that I don't have limitation is because I see life as, energy. Everything emits a frequency. Everything in the world emits a frequency. And I think that if you can get to the frequency of what you desire, you can get that, I believe that life is actually a reflection of the mind. Life is polarity, the negative and the positive. So if something is bad, just make it good, You can change the state of everything. There is no reason why you can't push, I believe that man is actually an aiming creature. And, senses help us navigate the world so that we can understand the world, But thoughts, life, energy, you have to be the overman. You have to be the Superman. You can't be passive. I don't know how many times I talked about being passive, because when you are passive, life just takes you away, But when you are the overman, when you have an elevated perspective, when you can actually plan out things, when instant gratification or likes or Netflix or novelty, the things that happen in the world don't take you away, you have that inner compass in yourself, so you can't really have limitations because you can actually plan out your day, you can delegate certain tasks to, to people, like Jesper said, I don't think there's such a thing as failure. And limitation. I think they're just imprints on your mind. I think that's the mind created that to actually delude you, you know. I think that we attract what is on our subconscious mind, you know. So if you believe that you are not worthy of certain things, you're not worthy of riches, life just says, if you say so, you know, it shows you that it was Napoleon Hill who actually said that what the mind can actually believe and conceive, the mind can believe. And I actually believe with that. Life is that simple. You just have to orientate yourself to the things that you want to achieve. There are no such thing, there's no such thing as a limitation. No, there's no such thing as limitation. I'm sorry, you know. And you see things like, you know, there was this test that was conducted by some university and it was actually called the marshmallow test. You know, it's it was a marshmallow test. I think it's what a test. It's the test of the will, you know, for a young kid. Because what they did is that they actually put a young kid, you know, in a room and with a marshmallow, you know, and the examiner says to the kid, if you don't eat this now, you can have two, you know, after I come back in like 5 minutes. And the kids who actually ate the marshmallow right away, no, they don't know how to actually control their impulses, you know. Um, and as they grew up, the study showed that these friends, you know, these guys rather, didn't know how to, they weren't successful in life in terms of, you know, like progressing in work or finding friends or, you know, just interacting in the world because they are too impulsive, you know, they can't regulate their emotions. And the difference in those guys who actually waited, you know, for like 10 minutes to get their second marshmallow is that they were able to delay gratification much longer and they were actually liked by their peers, you know, and they could actually play with other kids. And when they grew up, they started businesses. They were all this type, they were great businessmen. They were like great individuals, you know. So I just feel that you have to know how to regulate your emotions, know how to delay gratification. Don't be expedient. Of course, it's difficult in this world because everything is like easily able, you know, and you go onto the internet, everything has become human beings have become pleasure. We like pleasure too much. Yeah, you know, and that pleasure makes it it is through that pleasure that we can be controlled, you know. We are passive and nature doesn't want that. You know, nature it's what nature doesn't want. You must be the Superman, you must be the Overman. He saw it the way there is no limitations. What the mind can believe and conceive, it's the way. Life is energy. Thoughts are life energy, and you can do whatever you want. Someone like Elon Musk, for example, you know, built Tesla, you know, he built SpaceX, all these companies, Neuralink, he built them because he had a vision, you know. There were no limitations for him. He was asked in an interview, you know, like when it came to SpaceX, and his response was that I expected SpaceX to fail, you know, so that I can do better. That's his mentality, you know. It was a risk from the start, starting a company like, you know, SpaceX. But Elon Musk said that I knew it was a risk. I'm going to fail in either case, you know, so I might as well fail and get it over with so I can perfect what I need to do, you know. So if Elon Musk, somebody from South Africa, for example, you know, went on to becoming the richest man in the world through his mind, why should I limit myself? Why should I think that I live in lack when I live in abundance, you know? I think that the most important thing is that your thoughts have to be, you have to have good thoughts so that they can actually reap a good harvest, you know? So no, sorry, there are no such thing as limitations. No, no, I think that's just my take on today. Thank you, Ivan.
Great, thanks to be so. Now, I mean, after that, intellectual discourse, I just have to bring this back down to earth. So, now I've got no idea why I brought that up, but let's go over to Trevor anyway. So,
Ed, nichicist, that's what Thabiso is. Nichicist. Right. I think this topic actually came up because Thabiso stimulated it on Friday. And I think there's a difference between limitation and what's holding you back. So I can say, and really why I wanted this discussion is that I want to see life through Thabiso's eyes. Not Thabiso, he's just a metaphor for all of the 26-year-olds and 19-year-olds and 12-year-olds that are growing up in this current world right now. I just love to hear what it is that Thabiso is saying. And he seemed to indicate on Friday that he was without limitations. Yet, both Ed and I actually picked up on something because we wanted to actually dig down deeper from subtly different perspectives. And that's why we asked this question of what are your limitations or what's holding you back? Because as Thabiso was talking at 26, I was seeing myself at 26 and listening to a young guy that had great vision of conquering the world, but I saw this, I saw a gap between what it takes financially to conquer the world and what I have in my pocket right now. And that's where I was trying to dig down deeper into Thabiso. Okay, as a youngster at 26, where you staying, Alex, and how you moved across to Sandton, and how you took basic resources into that porta potty mobile studio that you did. What it said to me is that I was doing something with lack. And that my interpretation of Thabiso's future vision was Musk. Now, if you think that Musk did this without money, you got to be deluding yourself. That Musk got to where he inspires you to be. So I think inspires a lot of people apart from Ed, but I will keep pushing Ed on this one. And his inspiration was how he was able to generate these vast fortunes, wealth compared to the average Joe out there and be able to put them to work. So I think there's and I think you were absolutely spot on, Thabiso. I don't think it's about you having any limitations. I love the fact that you've actually evaluated for yourself that you are without limitations. In other words, all things are achievable. The problem is, what's holding you back? So why is it, or what is it that you want to do that helps you to take the next step to get to being where you want to be? What is holding you back? And that's a question we have to ask all of ourselves, because I do believe that we have physical limitations. Some of us have mental limitations. I'm just going to get that in before Ed has a go at me. Some of us can't count past 3, but I also see that as, and I wrote it in the chat, my greatest limitation. I think that's a superb oxymoron, because I see my limitations as being great, because that allows me to flip everything to my advantage the way I want to flip it to my advantage. So where I see things as simple 1, 2, 3, where other people are looking for complex things and they think I'm absolutely stupid because I don't know what the blooming base 3 that doesn't count to 3, but anyway, and these ternary numeral systems that people look at. I don't understand any of that stuff. But what I do understand is how to make things happen as quickly as possible. So I look to see how I can take my limitations and flip them into an advantage or opportunity. It's very much like flipping crisis into opportunity. How do you flip your limitations into advantages, your weaknesses into strengths? So I think, you know, I'm meandering down the road. I never do that. But I think to be so, you just wake up for me. I think you're a great metaphor for youth, but I do think you think a lot deeper than most youth I've come across, apart from my 12-year-old. She confuses me with everything at the moment. I'm at least starting to catch something of what Thabiso talks about, but I want to know what's holding him back. If he does not have limitations and is not deluding himself, how can he switch to where he wants to be ASAP?
Great, thanks, Trevor. Right, well, we've gone well past the bottom of the hour, but it's been a great discussion, and maybe we need to pick this up and continue it tomorrow. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are. I'm not here, so I have no limitations on tomorrow, but I'll leave you in. Yes, Ed.
Having had my buttons pushed by Trevor, yeah, I think it's a good idea to pick it up. But what interests me is we can put a man on the moon, but we can't stop millions of children going to bed hungry. We can have self-drive cars, but we can't stop the obesity crisis. And we can have navigation by GPS, but we can't stop domestic violence. So are we perhaps concentrating on the wrong problems? I mean, we can do that later in the week or whatever, but I just thought I'd throw that in because we're talking about achieving things. And when we come to the really important things in life, we can't achieve them.
So I wonder if the phrase that comes up to me is Jasper used this phrase because he also talked about problem solving, you know, so limitations or what's holding us back being a problem. And if we identify the problem, we can find the solution. And he used the phrase, what I can do. And so I'm wondering if we can't flip it instead of saying, okay, what's holding you back? What can I do? And fill in that sentence. What can I do? And then we can bring in Edward's world problems as well. So what can I do? What can I do?
Yeah, if you want the things you look at to change, then you need to change the way you look at things. Yeah. Good. All right. So what can you do? Okay. Well, I know what I can do. I can go and pack and jump in my car and leave you and love you for a week. So that's what I'm going to do.
I haven't your leave form. Can't find it.
Didn't you get it in the fax? I faxed it over to you. Yeah.
Have a fantastic time, Ivan.
Enjoy your holiday, Ivan.
Thanks very much.
Enjoy.
Have a good one, folks, and I will see you next week.
Okay.
Cheers now.
Bye.